If you have sleep apnea and struggle with CPAP, consider that CPAPs were invented in 1980. Do you even remember 1980? Everyone's house had one telephone. There were like 4 TV channels.
Come on.
You played video games in arcades and watched movies in theaters. GPS was a folded map and a helpful gas station attendant. And social media was inviting the neighbors to come look at your vacation pictures. A lot has changed since 1980. Now, for people who struggle with CPAP, there's Inspire. Inspire is an implanted device that treats sleep apnea inside your body at the click of a remote. It's the only FDA-approved sleep apnea treatment of its kind. While you sleep, Inspire keeps you breathing normally and resting comfortably. No mask, no hose, just sleep. To learn more, visit InspireSleep.com. Inspire, sleep apnea innovation. Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you and review important safety information at InspireSleep.com.
This podcast of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs is sponsored by AAA Heating and Air.
The premier HVAC company in the Midlands is growing. Are you a top HVAC technician?
AAA Heating and Air is looking for dedicated applicants to fill their fast-growing service department with top-notch HVAC technicians.
If you're the best, then they want you. If you're ready to stop working and start a career, you can earn up to $100,000 plus a year at AAA Heating and Air.
Quality candidates will have at least 2 years experience and a good driving record. Benefits include top industry salaries, commission on service and unit sales, set call limits, company-provided take-home vehicle and gas card, company-provided cell phone and tablet, health, dental, and vision benefits, 401k retirement plan with company match, and scaled PTO based on length of service.
Contact Roy and Dana Finley at 803-677-1500 or check out their job postings on Facebook or ZipRecruiter.
AAA Air when you need us. AAA Heating and Air.
Mitchell and Tyler Head on your home of the Gamecocks in Columbia. 107.5 The Game on 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach and 100.5 The Game in Florence.
Welcome in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Here on The Game, Tyler, West, and Chris along with you on this Tuesday morning as we roll along, continuing to look back at this past weekend against Furman and also looking ahead. Of course, Georgia coming up this weekend. And guys, we also learned not long after we went off the air yesterday, 2 weeks from now, or I guess 11 days from now, Mississippi State coming to town. That is also going to be a night game, 7:30 on SEC Network. So 2 straight night games to open up the home slate for South Carolina.
Shane Beamer has hacked the system. I don't know how he's done it. He's figured out the algorithm to getting night games, and I know some people aren't here for it. I'm here for it.
I am too.
Love it.
Well,
That's a huge game, obviously.
Only downside is that's a really good slate of college football. I haven't looked at which games are when, but week 4 is a really good one.
Yeah,
so you don't get, like last week, you didn't get to watch Texas Alabama.
Sure.
Like during the Furman game. That's the downside of it. For a while, Wes, they did figure it out for sure, because for a while South Carolina couldn't buy a night game several years ago. There was a lengthy stretch where like there was a night game and it was just everybody was just in a state of ecstasy because there hadn't been one here in so long. So this is for me a welcome change.
Would you believe that Colin has a spreadsheet that says that South Carolina's really good at home in night games under Shane Beamer?
I would. I saw his stat about it, and I figured it had originated from a spreadsheet.
It indeed had. So plays in their favor.
Tyler, so you got to see Williams-Brice.
I did
at
for the
night.
First time, yes.
So first time in general, you got to see a really good, I thought, environment. Not like the best you'll ever see.
Sure.
Right. The height of that was actually the 2012 Georgia game. That was the best.
I believe that.
Probably environment ever. Just had to throw that in there. But
thanks.
What did you think? What was your review?
Yeah, and it rained pretty much all day on Saturday, just about to the point of an hour before kickoff. So I kind of expected, like, all right, I know it was announced as a sellout, but yeah, maybe 3/4 full, something like that, because people can be deterred by the rain and weather and the fact that it's not a marquee matchup against a big name opponent. But stands pretty much full. I mean, there was a few seats left in the upper deck, but for the most part, pretty full. I thought Cocky's new entrance was really cool and a lot of hype around that. And
be careful.
Well, I guess it's controversial.
It
but,
is.
Seeing 2001 and the whole entrance and stuff for the first time was really neat. And obviously, Sandstorm in person, feeling the press box shake with all that was really cool. But good atmosphere, good environment. And, again, for a game against Furman, which no disrespect to them, but it's not like playing an SEC opponent. I thought the people showed up and were very into it. And, Lenore Sellers got like a standing ovation when he finally came into the game. So that obviously shows people are very well aware and reading what you guys write on GamecockCentral.com and everything the latest with recruiting. So I thought it was a good environment. I'm very interested to see what it's going to be like against Mississippi State in a couple weeks when you have a big game against an SEC opponent coming into town. But overall, I enjoyed it.
So
Fantastic plug, by the way, Tyler.
great plug. Just natural. Just right in there. So Tonka, there was some talk yesterday. Kirby Smart,
Yes.
Tonka Hemingway. So first of all,
You got to be kidding me.
Now we know that Kirby will take some things, like claim that somebody in the universe said that Georgia was going to win 7 games or something like that. No,
Right.
Absolutely nobody said that.
Right.
But he claimed that Tonka said, what was it? A&M and Kyle Field at Texas A&M were his two, loudest places.
He said
play?
A&M in Tennessee.
A&M and Tennessee. So here's my question to y'all first, and we'll dive into this a little bit more. Tyler, I know you've been to Sanford. Have you been other places? Have you been to a bunch of other SEC stadiums?
I've not. Williams-Brice was actually only the second one.
Wes, you've been to a good many. Do you have in your mind like a pecking order? And then, so Kirby is probably listening now to get insight, like a scouting report on the Gamecocks. So he might take what you say and then post that in the locker room before the game for added motivation.
Do you have the
If you don't
Kirby
say Sanford
clip?
I do. I just dropped my mouse, had to pick it back up. But
Don't
once
let
I
that thing run away from you, man.
Once I can get it working again, hold on.
I mean, this whole thing is ridiculous.
Oh, you don't like it?
No, I mean, it's just,
Well, it's
it's insane.
it's a case of, and when people talk about like, how people overreact to things on social media, if you say, I like Coke, I prefer Coca-Cola, then somebody's going to say, well, you must hate Pepsi then, right?
Right.
It's like, well, no, that's not what I said. It's like, but that's what you were implying.
Right.
So I think that's kind of what the case of this is with what Tonka said, and I'm still trying to get this.
Is the question
mouse to
is the
work.
question in this clip too? Like, even the question was just like
It's not, and
weird.
to be honest, Kirby didn't hear what Tonka said at SEC Media Days. I don't think he was sitting around listening to what players from the other schools were having to say. So yes, the question was presented as if Tonka was saying that that Stanford wasn't a tough environment or something like that.
Quiet as a mouse.
It was just simply a case of he just did not name them when giving his options.
On a smaller scale, it's like, remember years ago when Dabo went on his famous rant?
I got it. Here it is. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I'm expecting it to be that. People want to question whether our fans are elite. We'll find out Saturday, right? Sounds like Tonka called them out. So maybe we need to use Tonka for motivation and let him be the one that spurns our group to come out there at 3:30 and be really loud and fired up. So I certainly hope our fan base will be there. They've answered the bell every single time. I don't know why they wouldn't now.
And there's your bulletin board material for the week.
Yes. Just playing that video over and over of Tonka at Media Days.
How dare him?
Video from GamecockCentral.com.
I mean, first of all, I thought the best atmosphere I've actually ever been in for an opponent for South Carolina was the Swamp.
Okay. What year?
Wait, no. That's a lie. LSU
Yeah.
was one.
Valley. All right.
But the Swamp, I was there. I've been in the Swamp multiple times. I was there 2006 when Florida blocked the Ryan Suckup field goal that would have won it, and then they go on to win the national title. I mean, it was literally that entire South Carolina drive that would have been the game-winning drive. It was definitely like you literally could not hear the person beside you.
Right.
So those two are actually probably tied.
Yeah,
LSU.
for me.
What year was LSU?
I was at LSU 2012.
You were there.
Yeah.
How
Oh,
did
yeah.
I not see you?
I mean, there's a lot of people there, Chris.
There was 100,000
Not many
people there.
Gamecocks.
Yeah,
there
true.
were
No,
a lot of LSU
I was
fans.
there. I was there.
That was loud. That was awesome. Night game in Death Valley. Florida, I was there at the day game, the 2014 game, the block punt. That one was pretty good.
I was at that one too. I mean, it was loud, but it wasn't like
It wasn't.
like you go back and tell your friends about it loud.
I'll tell you one of the best I've seen. 2010 Auburn. Cam Newton was there.
Yeah, it wasn't at that game.
That one was really loud too.
Yeah.
That was one of the most impressive. Like that's up there in my top 2 or 3. I'd have to think about it a little bit more, but
You guys managed to go to the away games of teams that eventually either win the national championship or play for the national championship, it seems like.
Yeah.
06 Florida,
Yeah.
2012
Okay.
LSU, 2010 Auburn.
Yeah,
a little.
for sure. I mean, I don't even think Georgia's in the top. I'm just kidding. They are. That's a pretty
Take
good
that,
atmosphere,
Kirby.
man.
Well, it depends on, again, what years did you go?
Yeah, I was there for the Melvin Ingram fake punt game.
Is that 13?
I also had a stretch. I went to the most
That was
insane
11.
games possible.
Yeah.
Like just complete bonkers. Like 2013 Missouri. I know you were that one, Wes. Like just if there was a bonkers game on the road, I was there. Back to the comment. So remember Tate Ratledge? Like he got himself in trouble. Like he's a literal Georgia player, and he was like, I think Neyland Stadium's probably the best place.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's like, what about your own stadium? Kirby didn't put that up though
I mean,
in the locker room.
did Kirby even mean what he said? Like it was. If he was an actor, I'd be like, that was
Well,
very unbelievable.
Yeah,
it-
just like a robotic response.
And that's the thing, is the question was presented to him as if Tonka said, no, I'm not afraid of Sanford Stadium, and they got the quietest fan base in all the country. Like, Kirby, I guarantee you, did not hear the actual quote of what he said. He was just presented the question, reacted to it that way, and of course, he's going to say what any coach say is, we know our fans show up and they're going to be loud and all this kind of stuff, and sounds like he's making a challenge to them. But yeah, I think that was just more. I listened to the press conference yesterday. I didn't recognize the person asking the question, but yeah, he was just kind of going off the information he was presented, it seemed like.
Yeah, I'm just saying we're stretching. We are stretching if this is. But he did kind of challenge. I think he just used it as a chance to challenge the fan base there. Because let's be honest, they're spoiled at this point. You got 2 straight titles. You got little South Carolina coming in, 26-point underdog. He wants for there to be a
Question: does the Spike Squad have a message for Tonka painted on their bodies this weekend?
You would know that better than we would.
That's a question
What is your
for you.
opinion?
There's a chance.
Oh, my gosh.
What would
There's
it
a
say?
chance. I don't know.
Hey, Tonka,
Maybe something like that.
we're here.
But like, this seems like the kind of thing that they might try and take advantage of.
Well, maybe reverse of it. Maybe Tonka will use this as motivation to have his best game. What do y'all think about that?
Possible.
Possible. I think it's all a little bit.
I think
silly.
we're going to play the game.
Yeah.
And the people on the field will determine the winner.
Yes, I do agree with that.
You're telling me something that was said back in July doesn't have any bearing over what happens in September?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm telling you. I don't know. When I saw this floating around on social media, I was like, "Are we really having this conversation? Like, what is this?"
Do y'all think Beamer is going to pull the little old South Carolina card, like you said, Wes? He will probably be asked some version of that today. What is your message to the team? He'll probably be asked, "Do you show your guys film from the 2019 game?" You know what I mean? Like people get that all the time. Like, do you show? It's like, no, we're not going to show them that. Like, we're going to just go play the game.
Yeah.
Because what happened then? Like Javon Kinlaw is not on the field.
The Carry-On Joiner was on that.
The
team.
Carry-On Joiner was
you
on
have
the field.
You have a few guys that were on the team that
Yeah.
could be like, hey, guys, here's what we did on that day.
Here's what
type
some other
thing.
guys did. Yeah. No. But he'll probably be asked about that. But, I tend to think Beamer at times, from what we've heard, will use some kind of motivational tactics. I think later last year, there were internally like some David versus Goliath, Rocky versus what's his face type of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to project that publicly as much, and I don't think he's going to go overboard with it. I don't think he's going to stand up and say in his press conference, "Nobody's picking us,"
Sure.
type of thing. I don't think he's going to go that direction.
Sure. We'll hear more of what Kirby had to say about South Carolina yesterday when he spoke to the media. Coming up, you're listening to the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on The Game.
You loved Lala Kent on Vanderpump Rules. Now get to know her on Give Them Lala.
I feel like I have friends in this camera.
I know. I love that you're looking at the camera. No, you do have friends.
No, I know.
Anyone
I feel
watching
like they're
you.
all here.
Yes.
We're all just like hanging out. Ocean's very into thumbs up right now. She's like this in her face. Thumbs up. We do it all the time. She loves that face.
I love that. Give one to your friends.
Watch what Lala is talking about on YouTube or search for Give Them Lala wherever you listen.
Mitchell and Tyler Head on your home of the Gamecocks in Columbia, 107.5 The Game. Also heard on 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach and 100.5 The Game in Florence.
They were tops in the conference last year in the little composite thing we do in terms of looking at all of them and ranking all the special teams units and then taking a composite of that. They were one in the SEC, and it's something they do a really, really good job of. I know he's very hands-on with that. He's passionate about it. It creates an identity for his players, and you can see them. They play that way on special teams. They play really hard on special teams units, so it's an important part of the game. And if you look at at least maybe our second game, I don't know about our first one, but it was impactful for us too. So you're going to have a lot of momentum plays in those units.
Welcome back in to the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. That was Kirby Smart talking about South Carolina's special teams real quick. Of course, no special teams touchdown this past weekend against Furman. That means $300 roll over to this weekend's contest against Georgia with the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Touchdown Contest, which you can head over to 1075thegame.com and register for your chance to win, which means if South Carolina does get in the end zone with special teams this weekend, you could win $300 on a gift card. That'll be announced Monday morning on the early game with Bill and Preston. Again, assuming South Carolina can get in the end zone with special teams this weekend. If not, that money will roll over to Mississippi State the next weekend, where $400 will be up for grabs again in the Lawyer Alicia Special Teams Touchdown Contest, live now on 1075thegame.com. Talking about special teams going into this weekend, and I brought this up last hour, and you guys mentioned 2019 where South Carolina was able to pull the upset. 3 interceptions of Jake Fromm that day, and Mukwamu ended up returning one of those for a touchdown. South Carolina is really going to have to take advantage of these non-offensive touchdown type situations if they want to hang with Georgia on Saturday, and using special teams and some of the tricks and nuances that we know South Carolina is good at could be a big X factor.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see, what Pete Limbo has to say this week if we hear from him, because I don't think he's going to be too happy, honestly, with special teams play from this past weekend. And this is a unit, as much as we talk about the big plays and the splash plays and all that, they really pride themselves on executing. And that's where Pete Limbo's attention is. It's attention to detail, putting guys in the right spot. I think you saw, obviously we talked about it all offseason, you're going to have a lot of different guys involved with special teams compared to last year. There's a lot of turnover in these different units. I saw quite a bit of turnover from week 1 to week 2 this past week as well. So you do have those marquee spots, your kicker, your punter, your snapper, your holder, your kickoff returner. You had all those guys back. But kind of fill in all the other blanks, the guys that honestly people don't even really always pay a ton of attention to if you're watching in the stadium. The guys down there covering kicks, covering punts, protecting, all those different things. Lots of turnover there, and I think this might have been an eye-opener for them this past week against Furman. I'll be curious to see if they can take a step forward this week, because these games that have been kind of, you would say, in the margins, like win or lose, how many games has South Carolina won because they have just been so much better on special teams than their opponent? Georgia, I suspect, will be pretty good on special teams just because of their level of depth and talent. That goes a long way as well. But if you're South Carolina, you definitely want to hope you can steal a score here or there and make this a weird one, like Chris said. You want this to be a bonkers game if you're going to win it.
Well, and there was some conversation after the North Carolina game about Mo Kaba playing special teams and, should a starter be playing on special teams? Yes, because the best special teams units in the country play starters. South Carolina did it last year. You can't kind of hope to be good and not play really good players on special teams. It doesn't happen by playing, only walk-ons, only backups. You're not going to be very good. You have to be extremely well coached. and you have to play talented players. Obviously, the more depth you have, sometimes you don't have to dip into those starters. The reason that I mentioned the Kaba thing is because Kirby Smart at Georgia has always been someone who is believed in playing starters on special teams. So you will see their best players playing on special teams. To your point, Wes, about them being dangerous, not just solid in all areas, but they had a punt returned for a touchdown last week against Ball State. That was their opening touchdown. Mekhi Muse, 69-yard punt return to open the scoring in that game. So they'll have a lot of athletes all over the field. They'll be rock solid, I think, in the kicking game, in the coverage game, but they also are dangerous in the return game. And so you look at that for South Carolina, they have not looked as dangerous as you would have thought in the kick return game so far. That's been an area, I mean, Pete Lembo mentioned that specifically after UNC. He was happy with everything except for the kick game, the kick return game. I didn't see anything that was super inspiring against Furman even in the kick return game. So that's kind of an area of, look, you want to steal some yardage or break a big return, that's an area you're going to have to improve in. But also on your coverage units, kick coverage, punt coverage, Xavier Leggette's done a great job in punt coverage. That's going to be a critical part of this, but also making sure that Georgia doesn't break any big plays of their own.
Yeah, I thought they had an opportunity to have a nice little punt return that got called back by what I actually didn't think was a block in the back. I thought the Carolina got held up, and then the Furman player fell. But, so there was an opportunity there. But Beamer even mentioned, hey, we thought we had a great shot to block a punt this week. And if you go back and watch, there were several times where they seemed to get the look they wanted, and they kind of tried to overload that the personal protectors for Furman, and they just barely missed blocking a punt. So, but Beamer mentioned that as, hey, we went in thinking we were going to get one. So that tells you where the standard is. Like a lot of special teams, you're probably thinking, oh, man, very close to making a play there, very close to blocking a punt. Maybe we'll get one later this year. For Beamer and them, it's like, no, we expect to block one of those punts, and we didn't. So the standard for South Carolina special teams is at a different level than it is for a lot of teams. It's at a different level than it was for South Carolina prior to Beamer and Pete Lembo arriving. So I think that's something obviously is always a part of the conversation going into a game. As long as this group is in Columbia, special teams will be right there. It is an identity. I think that was a good way to say it by Kirby Smart. Like, they've built an identity of being a great special teams unit.
And with that being said, and we talked about this going in the North Carolina game, now there's this level of expectation from your opponents that, they're going to be looking to do X, Y, and Z when it comes to special teams because that's what they're known for. And that, in turn, makes it harder to pull those things off as time goes along.
It does, and I hope the other end of that, though, is that, if you're South Carolina, you're hoping, well, they're now going to spend extra time of practice on special teams. So you've got to in some ways stay one step ahead. And I think a lot of teams, if you're going to run a fake, everybody kind of has their little base fakes where the entire purpose of it is that you catch them off guard. For South Carolina, their fakes almost have to be twofold. It's that there's a fake involved, but there's also some additional element of misdirection. Having a punter that can throw the ball, having a holder that can throw the ball. Those things get added into where there's an additional layer of execution that is required to make it hit, I think, because just catching them off guard and getting an easy first down is probably not possible. We've seen South Carolina, though, convert on special teams where it's almost like the opponent expected it,
right?
And the play call itself was so well designed that South Carolina gets the first down anyway.
Or the execution. I mean, I always go back to the Tonka Hemingway, since we're talking about him. Tonka catching that fake against Vandy. Mm-hmm. I mean, that Vandy, I don't know if they expected it per se, but they covered it actually very well. And the guy hanging all over Tonka, but Kai Kroger throws a really good ball, and Tonka, who's a great athlete, goes up and catches the football with a defender draped all over him. So it's something that teams are definitely more on alert for. I tend to think, guys, yes, it is better. It's great if you can go make a big special teams play, as in convert a fourth down, go score, right? Those are important. I think in a game like this, it's going to be more important to just be very, very solid, to at least play Georgia even on special teams is going to be, to me, even more important. Special teams plays can change a game, a big return, a fake, but there are also instances where, look, you got to make sure you take care of business in the other aspects too. I mean, South Carolina had a great special teams conversion against Georgia last year. They lost the game, and they lost it handily. Florida last year, you make a great special teams play there. It's their only score of the game. So those things are important. They can be magnified if the game is close. If you end up needing that play, they can be, Kirby talked about momentum plays. Those can be big momentum plays. But I think it's equally as important. Don't give up a big return to Georgia. Don't, make sure that you're solid punting the ball. Make sure you're solid covering kicks so that you're not giving them field position, kind of those hidden yardage plays. Those are going to be critical as well.
Right, and we'll continue to break down this matchup with Georgia as the week rolls along. But you guys got the opportunity to speak with Spencer yesterday on Gamecock Central Live. We'll dive into a little bit of what he had to say coming up. You're listening to the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on the...
For over 3 decades, nobody has had a wrestling career like Arn Anderson. Conrad Thompson gets all the stories with Arn.
Would you rather take the cactus bump from the apron to the floor or give Ric Flair your debit card pin?
Number one, I don't have a debit card, but if you think I'd give him my American Express.
Yeah, there you go. Same thing.
I've been poor most of my adult life up until about the age of 25. I cannot be poor again.
Check out Arn every week, wherever you listen.
Game.
Sponsored by Love Chevrolet. There are lots of places to buy your next ride, but there is no place like Love Chevy, where you never pay more than MSRP, ever. Come by and feel the difference of love. I-26 at Harbison and at lovechevy.com. Find new roads. What you're talking about. Sponsored by Love Chevrolet. On your home of the Gamecocks. In Columbia, 107.5 The Game. Also heard on 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. And 100.5 The Game in Florence.
Yeah, I mean, he got so much better in the offseason. I mean, he had a great ending to the year. In the Notre Dame game, he made a lot of plays. So he built his confidence, later in the year last year. But this off season, I don't think I've seen anybody work as hard as him. And he put the time in, he put the work in, and it's coming to fruition right now. He's doing his thing, and I trust him, not just him, but a lot of other guys. But yeah, man, he's been our top playmaker, and I expect nothing less from him.
Welcome back in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris along with you. That was the voice Spencer Rattler talking with you guys yesterday on GC Live for a couple minutes, talking about the relationship he's had with Xavier Legette and the chemistry those two have shared so far to start this season. And Spencer Rattler yesterday was honored with the SEC Offensive Player of the Week after his performance against Furman on Saturday night. And a big part of that was Xavier Legette, once again going over 100 yards.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate Spencer hopping on with us. Appreciate Garnet Trust for making that possible. And some good stuff from Spencer. Chris, I think it's kind of interesting. He has been obviously dialed in this year on the field. Off the field, I think Spencer has been completely okay with letting his on-the-field play do the talking. We asked him about Georgia and just were, even very, very broadly, and he, while simultaneously giving all the credit to Georgia and saying, look, this is a great team we're playing, didn't even really take the bait on talking much at all about what he's seen from them specifically. Just has been nothing but a professional, I feel like. And I think he wants to keep all the focus on the field, I think. And so he doled out a ton of praise to his teammates during that interview. Plenty of praise to Dow Loggins as well. Praised the offensive line. And for the most part, though, I felt like kind of took the spotlight much off of himself.
Yeah, he's just different this year. and I think it's he looks. I'm not the first person to say this by any means, but he looks like he did at the end of last season, where there's just, it reminds me a lot. Just the entire year has reminded me of either the Tennessee or the Clemson game, right? Like, you remember in the Clemson game, even when he had a couple big mistakes in that game. Threw a pick six early, threw a pick down there right on the doorstep of scoring. And it was always just shake it off, go on to the next thing. Always looked confident, almost looked a little bit like, how did that happen? I'm going to go back and just make another big play. And we have always, pitted that against how Clemson's quarterback looked. And it looked a lot more shaky, right? So, and then the Tennessee game, everything just went right, and Spencer was just feeling it, right? This year, there's been adversity for Spencer. You think about the first game, the 9 sacks, being heated up, being constantly under pressure. But I thought just the way he handled that was outstanding. He didn't make any mistakes in that game that were big. I mean, he took extremely good care of the football. So I think the mentality has looked different than last year. It's looked like it did in the best moments last season. That's how it looked. That's how it has looked this year. And then the biggest difference, we've said this before, just the way he's taking care of the football. After 2 games last year, there were 3 interceptions on the ledger for Spencer Rattler. This year, obviously different year, different season, different competition. This year, there's been 2. So he's been a difference maker for them. He kept them in the North Carolina game. He made some huge plays against Furman and made sure that the reason that if they had run into further trouble against Furman, it wasn't going to be because of him turning the football over. And obviously he's made some big plays for him too. So I think you listen to Dow Loggins talk and Shane Beamer and Spencer Rattler himself, there's a lot of confidence in number 7 right now. They've got some things to figure out around him, but I think the evidence is pretty clear that, sometimes you think a guy's going to make a jump from season to season or even based on what you heard in the preseason. What we heard was really, really strong, and I think the evidence points to it absolutely being true, and that jump absolutely is taking place.
I think not to just like crown Dow Loggins already, but we've all at this point seen this movie where you bring in a new coordinator and all you hear is all the positive stuff in the offseason. No new coordinator has ever come in and then you hear the guys go into a press conference and say, man, I don't know what coach is doing. Like this offense looks very complicated. I don't know if we're ready yet. Now even behind the scenes, we were hearing over and over and over, Spencer looks like incredible in practice. Like it's going to a new level. But this is it's 2 games. I get it. I know we all saw the issues in pass protection in week 1. That's obviously a work in progress. But just in terms of your quarterback looking comfortable in a early season situation with a new coach, new quarterbacks coach, new play caller, all the above, this is about as smooth of a transition as I have ever seen. And also to back up what our eyes tell us about Spencer Rattler keeping control of the football, according to PFF, no turnover-worthy plays so far this year from Rattler. That is through 2 games. That's with 83 dropbacks so far. 83 dropbacks, no turnover-worthy plays from Spencer Rattler. Very impressive.
I wonder if any other quarterback has that stat. We
need a Colin Taylor spreadsheet.
Yeah, Colin's
probably got a
spreadsheet
spreadsheet
on that.
for that. If he doesn't, he will.
Speaking of Dow Loggins, here's what he had to say to you guys yesterday about the chemistry those 2 have had so far.
I think first off, he's a great coach, communicates really well, knows our player strengths. I know I've told you guys that before. And, I like how he gets the ball in my hand and lets me kind of do my thing. And that's awesome. It's fun for me. And, also with all our we have so many weapons. So, I mean, his job ain't that hard with all these guys we got. But, he's a great coach, great leader, great man. And, we worked it in the spring, we worked it in the summer, and, we found what we're good at. And, we just got to keep building on that.
And, through 2 games, we have not seen the full fleshed out playbook of Dow Loggins probably to a full degree yet. And especially that first game against North Carolina, just because you didn't have enough time to let the plays that you want to develop. But again, so far so good. And despite the circumstances in game number one, like you said, Rattler's able to take care of the ball well and still able to throw for a lot of yards and, develop a good sense with Xavier Leggett and some of the other guys in the receiving core as well. But, so far so good. And like you said, he just looks comfortable and looks confident overall in what Dow Loggins has brought in as a new system.
I think even the fact that he was just comfortable throwing that little kind of joke at Dow, like, oh, his job's not even that hard, just I think tells you how solid their relationship is for two guys who haven't, they've been around each other for 9 months now, but they haven't been with each other for 3 years. So, I think that speaks to where both those guys are at. Another stat that just is jumping off the screen to me right now, guys, adjusted completion percentage for this season for Rattler. Now, we talked about it yesterday. PFF does hand out drops like Santa hands out presents, I guess, but 90.9% adjusted completion. Not for a game, for the season so far.
Yeah, I think he's missed I can think of two. There might be another one or two in there. Throws that he's just missed. Just a straight up kind of miss, little off.
Yeah.
Haven't been many.
Have not been many at all. And again, 83 dropbacks. That's a lot of opportunities for something to go wrong. And for the most part, he's been making the right decisions and then following that up by being able to put the ball where he wants it.
Well, and that was again, I said this earlier, that was the biggest thing. Like Shane Beamer harped on that all off season. It was, we've got to be better running the ball. We've got to be better stopping the run. And we've got to be better taking care of the football as a team. Now, he didn't put all that on Spencer, but Spencer's the only player that's touching the ball literally every single play. And so he has done his part in that regard. The team has done a really good job of that so far. Now, will that continue in conference play? We're going to see. And this team has done a good job of forcing turnovers. Again, we saw that against North Carolina. Spencer's play, the turnovers they got against North Carolina, that kept them in the game despite everything else. But to your point, Wes, the partnership, as it's called, that whichever one of those, I think, did Dowell term that or did Spencer term that? I think it was Dowell.
I think that was a Dowell term.
That was a perfect description, in theory, but I think we've seen that, as you said, that has come true. And Spencer, one of the big reasons he is more comfortable, aside from just being in year 2 here at South Carolina and recognizing, hey, he needs to take even bigger leadership role and bigger step in that regard, has been the way that Dowell has administered the offense. That has been huge in terms of his development and his improvement.
Absolutely. We're going to hear from Coach Beamer coming up a little bit later on today for his weekly press conference, which we'll have for you right here on the game, sponsored by Pete Ale Wine, Pools and Spas. We'll preview that a little bit coming up. You're listening to the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris along with you, wrapping up Tuesday's edition of the show. Again, Coach Beamer coming up today at 1:30 for his usual weekly press conference, which we'll have for you on the halftime show with Terry, brought to you by Pete Ale Wine, Pools and Spas. Who does Beamer get asked about first today? Lenora Sellers or the 2 freshman offensive linemen?
Lenora Sellers.
Lenora Sellers.
Does he get asked to respond to the Tonka Hemingway controversy that has dominated?
It's going to get
dominated the headlines.
Dominated the headlines.
It's going to get brought up.
Our long national nightmare.
Man. Silly. Yeah, he'll get asked, I think. Y'all think he'll give you think he'll go lighthearted about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think he's heard actually what Tonka said?
Probably. Or he's been briefed on it.
I'm sure he's been. Beamer is dialed into what's going
knows
on around his program. So, yes. I would say yes. Or he might just pretend he has no idea what they're talking about and be like, we're moving on from this.
That's good. You are going to have to respond to that. And unfortunately, you will have to have a quote-unquote good response. See who.
Yeah, because now it's going to be
defined different ways.
Like, here's what Beamer had to say about this whole thing, and it's going to make its round on social media, as these things typically tend to do.
What if he was like, yeah, Tonka's right?
Ooh.
I mean, he's not going to say that, but
I will vote he does not.
Material.
That would be hilarious. So just lean into it.
I don't think he's going to do that. I think he'll do the, we know Georgia has a great environment. I was an assistant there under Kirby for 2 years, all those things. Yep, he's going to do that. But maybe a little lighthearted mix with that.
More coaches should embrace being the heel from time to time, and that would be a perfect opportunity to do that.
Beams ain't going heel.
I stand by what Tonka said. That would be so awesome. Just all in on the I'm playing heel role. I'm the spoiler. We're not backing down. He's not going to do that.
Well, Beamer is a heel for Tennessee fans, but I think they don't like anybody. Like,
That's
Beamer
true.
literally didn't do anything. They were super mad at Beamer after the first year, and they won the game by a lot.
What were they mad at him about?
Because he kept trying to
score.
He kept trying to win the game. Like he was encouraging his team.
Oh, he just lay down
because
and
they
die.
played better in the second half. They were very upset by the notion that the other coach didn't just tell his team to stay in the locker room. I guess I don't know.
I don't.
You'd have to ask them.
They hate everybody, but they definitely have an extra layer of hate for being. I don't get it at all.
Extreme trigger.
Do not get it at all. So that was before South Carolina beat the brakes off of them last week.
It's worse
last
now.
year.
You would never know, by the way, that game happened because Robert McVall or whatever his name is on Twitter. Tyler, I think you've had some run-ins with him.
That guy responds to everything.
Oh my goodness.
He is. I mean, Tennessee has already won the game this year by 400 points, and which that may happen, but last year's game apparently was memory hold.
I think he's the one that started the rain theory when they lost in Athens last year too.
What was that?
It rained briefly in that game, and they still lost by 2 touchdowns. It's like, well, if it didn't rain, Tennessee definitely would have won that game. Sure, buddy.
Okay.
Sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
By the way,
Vol Twitter's a weird place, man.
Never go in there alone.
It's a very dark and lonely existence. By the way, speaking of theories, did we already mention this? This is off topic. Wes, save me, get me back on after this. I think we have officially killed off Cade Klubnik. If he had started against Carolina last year in the Clemson game, like that's done, right? There's no remnants of this.
Yeah, I don't think that's
been scrubbed from the internet.
I didn't know if even Clemson people still were holding on to that idea.
Yeah, now that they've gotten a fair sample size of him, I don't think they make that same argument.
We forgot about that one too.
Yeah, I think their big take right now is all right, who's the backup now?
Right.
After every fan base, if your quarterback isn't performing,
writing apology letters to send out to Corvallis, Oregon.
Yes, the male man or woman out there is very busy. What is all this Clemson, South Carolina mail out here? Come back. Guys, I want some help from our Firehouse Subs text line, 803-404-6100. We won't really be able to give the responses today because we're almost out of time, but I've been workshopping some player comps for the freshmen who we got to see for the first time on Saturday. And I'm kind of struggling. I had one that I liked, and then I started kind of self-scouting myself on it, and I was like, it doesn't quite work. I think I have one I kind of like. Mario Anderson has a little bit just in stature and the way he runs angry. There's a little bit of Mike Davis in there.
Okay.
I think when you rewatch the game or watch Mario next, tell me if I'm right or wrong on that. I don't know if he has the Mike Davis patented spin move in his repertoire yet. I was trying to. So Tyshawn Russell reminds me of somebody, and I can't quite put it together in my head. He actually from a running style standpoint. He kind of physically his gait reminds me of Nicky Jones, but Nick is a good 5 inches shorter than Tyshawn, so that doesn't quite work. I can't place him.
Workshop this.
I was like, stature wise, maybe there's a little Shaq Rowland in there. I think Shaq's probably a little bit taller.
Shaq's about 6'1", maybe
6'1",
6'2".
6'2".
Does this have to be specific South Carolina comparisons? Can they go elsewhere?
They can go elsewhere. I try if there's a clear South Carolina one, I try to go that direction because it just makes it easy. But if there's a big name guy everybody else knows from somewhere else,
that works too. That's your
Absolutely.
homework.
Yeah, let us know. Firehouse Subs text on 803-444-6100. We'll hit those tomorrow. That'll do it for today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show with Terry coming up right here on the game.
You loved Lala Kent on Vanderpump Rules. Now get to know her on Give Them Lala.
The Gen Zers, they love to be Gen Z, are calling Margot Robbie mid. On what planet is Margot Robbie a mid? Who's judging this? Are women judging it? The people, the forward haircuts.
Yeah. Don't bring my people into this. The people with the foreheads, babe.
We all agree that she's a 10.
Yes. Give Them Lala wherever you listen.